Welcome everybody. My name is Sarah Page and I'm glad you've joined me. For today's practice, if you had a tennis ball or a therapy ball, something that you can hold on to and grip with one hand, that would be awesome, but it's not required. You can definitely do this practice without the tennis ball. The practice today is going to be specifically targeted to waking up the tissues around some of our joints, specifically our shoulders and our hips. We're also going to do a little work with our spine. And this is a little bit different than a traditional yoga class, although there are elements of yoga in it, just due to the mindfulness nature of it, the connection between the body and the mind, and really focusing your energy on the task at hand. So we'll start our practice standing, and if you have that tennis ball, just set it beside you. We'll reach for that a little bit later. We're going to start with our feet and establish a nice connection between the earth and the soles of your feet. And feel a strong anchoring point at the knuckle of your big toe and the knuckle of your pinky toe, and also feel the center of your heel. In your mind's eye, connect those three dots with straight lines, and you'll be left with a triangle, kind of an odd-shaped triangle at the bottom of your foot. Inside that triangle are the muscles of your foot arch. Do your best to stay connected to those three anchoring points, but inspire an energetic lift through the center of your foot where your arch is. And notice if when you did that, you gripped your toes onto your mat. I encourage you to keep your toes relaxed. Try to lift through your arches and stay anchored into your foot tripod. And for this next little bit, it might help you to actually look at your feet. If that bothers your neck, don't do it. But we're going to look down at our feet and try to make a little bit of space between each one of our toes. So you can even lift your toes off of your mat or the floor here and spread them out nice and wide. And then just simply lay them back down. Now see if we can just lift the big toe. Try to keep your other toes relaxed. They might be gripping a little bit, that's okay. But try to elevate your big toes. If it doesn't happen, no sweat. If you've never done this before, it can be a little challenging to achieve that big toe lift. Lower your big toes and try to lift all of the other 4 toes on each foot. And notice if when you do that, your ankles roll in a little bit, and can you stay connected to that outer border of your feet even as you lift the 4 toes. Let's switch again. Lower your 4 toes, lift your big toes. Did your ankles roll outward? Can you stay connected now to that big toe knuckle even as you try to lift your big toe? Let's switch one more time. Lower your big toes and lift the other 4. And then relax all 10 of your toes and just shift your weight slightly around your feet. Now you'll need your tennis ball. We're going to work on our shoulder joint right now. And so we'll be internally and externally rotating this upper arm bone in addition to flexing at the shoulder and extending in the shoulder. So I'm going to show you this in a couple different views so you get an idea of the path that we're going to take. And the reason we're using the tennis ball is to recruit some of the strength in the joints below your shoulder. So when you squeeze on that tennis ball, you're kind of recruiting some of the tissue around the wrist, the forearm, to help to support this rotational shoulder movement. So you're going to stand up nice and tall with your shoulders over your hips, your neck in a neutral position. Face the palm of your hand and the inside of your wrist forward. Gentle squeeze on the ball. You don't have to try to crush it, but just so you can feel something's happening there. As you reach your arm forward, also cross in front of your body without rotating your chest. Continue to reach your arm over your head and take it out on a diagonal line away from you. So right now, we've got this shoulder, this arm bone in external rotation. as if you were trying to kind of throw that ball behind you. Once you max out your overhead reach, internally rotate your arm bone and extend your shoulder so that your arm reaches behind you. And then you can just bring your arm beside you. Now that ball is facing away from you. The back of your hand should be facing forward, the palm of your hand facing backwards. Keep your arm as straight as you can and reach your arm back and up, continuing to internally rotate your arm until you max out that range. Now externally rotate your arm and reach your arm over your head. Cross your arm out in front of you again. Let's try that again, just a little bit faster. Overhead reach, external rotation. Once you max it out, spiral your arm into internal rotation, reach it behind you and beside you. Try to stay really focused in only moving your shoulder. Let's go back the way we came. And keep your chest and hips facing forward. Crisscross. Now for this last round, we're going to make the rest of our body really strong. So even reach your left arm down beside you, fire up your legs and glutes, find some support throughout your core, and let's add a little extra resistance to the shoulder rotation. Crossing your body, reaching overhead, internal spiral that upper arm bone, reach it behind you. And then last round, starting with the extension, internal rotation. Rotate from the upper arm bone to go to external rotation overhead and cross your body. And then just switch hands and relax for just a moment. So you're gonna just stand up nice and tall. Take a few breaths, notice how you're feeling. Notice any sensations that are present in your body. Where are you feeling the effects of this rotation? And then let's hold on to that ball with a moderate grip in your left hand, spiraling your upper arm bone into external rotation as if you were trying to turn the soft eye of your elbow forward, and rotate your palm forward. As you start to reach your arm out in front of you, also cross it in front of your chest. And then sweep it out on a diagonal, max out your flexion, and then internally spiral your arm and reach your arm behind you into extension, and then bring it beside your hip. Try to keep your ribs down. We're not back bending here. I'm going to show you this from the side. Reaching back first, internal shoulder rotation. Once you max it out, rotate your arm, external rotation, bring it overhead, and cross it in front of your body. Neutral spine and pelvis. Let's do it again. Reach overhead. Internal rotation, reach behind. Start back. External rotation overhead. And adduct across the front of your body. Now this last one, we're going to add in that little extra oomph, support. A little bit of muscular engagement through your whole body as if you're standing a little stronger in your foundation. Even reach really firmly through your right arm as if you could touch the floor with your right fingers. You could even make a fist with that right hand. Start to take your arm over your head and out to the side on a diagonal. Internal rotation, reach behind you. Back by your hip, and then reverse the direction. Reach back first. Really straight arm, external rotation, overhead reach, and then crisscross out in front of you. Okay. So now we're going to come down onto hands and knees, tabletop position, just like you would do for yoga class. You can arrange your knees under your hips. Set your ball aside. We might use it again in a minute. And then bring your wrists slightly forward of your shoulders. And let's take the hands a little wider than normal. Rock your hips back towards your heels, kind of like you're going to come into child's pose, but don't go all the way. We're going to do a little work with the hands and the wrists here. So with your arms stretched out in front of you, start to tap just your index fingers. Lift and tap as quickly as you can. Keep your arms straight. If this is super easy for you, bring your hips away from your heels and bring your shoulders forward. You'll notice that that makes this movement a little bit more challenging. The closer you get your shoulders to stack over your wrist, the harder it gets just to isolate the index fingers. If your elbows start to bend, bring your shoulders back again and focus on just moving the index fingers. How's your spine? Can we keep it pretty level and neutral without back bending or flexing like cat? Okay, rest your index fingers. Start to lift and tap your middle fingers. You might notice that one hand is a lot better at this. That's not uncommon. Keep your low ribs buttoned up. Keep your chest kind of broad here. And now let's try to mobilize those ring fingers. This is the really tricky one. Lift and tap just your ring finger. If your arms want to bend, rock your hips back, move your shoulders back. If it's too easy, bring your shoulders more directly over your wrist. Lift and tap, ring finger. All right, relax that. We're going to do pinky fingers next. Lift and tap as quick as you can without changing any other part of your body. Couple more. Tap, 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 tap. Great. Okay, let's give that a little rest. You can sit back on your heels. If you have a block or a cushion you want to sit on instead, that would be fine. Just bring yourself into an upright seat. Maybe close your eyes and feel your breath. Maybe you slow it down just a touch. Make it more intentional. Finding a steadiness there. A smooth in and out cycle through your nose. Next up, we're going to mobilize our shoulder blades. I call this flossing for your scapula. We're going to do it a couple of different ways. So first, come up onto your shins into a tall kneeling position. Bring your arms right out in front of you so that your palms face inward to each other. Keep your arms really straight. Draw your arm bones backwards into your shoulder socket. Your shoulder blades are going to squeeze into your spine. A little bit closer, that's retraction. And then pull your arm bones outward away from your body and let your shoulder blades glide apart from each other. That's protraction. Try to keep this movement out of your neck and continue. Retraction, protraction. Pull back, reach forward. Squeezing together, making some space. Two more. Squeeze and broaden and squeeze and broaden. Now bring your arms beside your hips. We're going to practice elevation and depression. So you might be tempted here to move your spine somehow when you're doing this. Let's try to keep it in the shoulder blades only. So hands are going to stay facing your body. Let your shoulder blades lift. This is generally a position we don't want to be in, but if we're doing it in an intentional way, it's okay. And then anti-shrug your shoulders. Pull them down. Let's do that a few times. Elevate and depress. Scapula glide upward as you elevate. Scapula glide downward towards your back pockets when you depress. Let's do two more. Notice where you're feeling this. And we're going to put that motion together by reaching the arms forward and making a little circle here. So it'll be elevation, retraction backwards, depression downwards, and reaching forward into that protracted position. Now, if I were to let my spine participate in this, it would look like this. But I'm going to try to keep my spine really still and just work on those shoulder blades. Lift, tuck back, lower, reach forward, and then smooth it out. You can go really slow here. You can go a little faster. What feels right? Reverse the direction. Can you keep your head still? Two more. Beautiful. Let's take a downward dog in between this exercise and our next. Tuck your toes, stretch your hips upward and backward. Watch out for the dog if you have a dog as an obstacle. This is Tuffy. He likes being on my mat when I'm practicing yoga or mobility. Take one more smooth cycle of breath in and out in your downward dog. And come down onto your shins and knees. We're going to stay in the tabletop this time so you can adjust your wrists where you want them underneath your shoulder. Potentially you would have a slight turnout at the wrists so that you can get your upper arm bones rotating outwardly, as if you wanted to show your biceps towards the wall in front of you, and then find a neutral spine position. We're going to do the same exercise that we did kneeling, just in retraction and protraction. We're going to skip the elevation and depression. Arms stay straight. Imagine you have a pencil between your shoulder blades and try to squeeze your shoulder blades onto that pencil. Your chest is going to sink a little bit. Keep your chin slightly tucked. Now broaden your shoulder blades and let that pencil pop towards the sky. Let's go again. Minimize the movement of your spine. So you might be tempted to do cat and cow here. Let's see if we can just get our shoulder blades to glide on our ribs instead. Is your head nodding? Can you keep it still? Keep some support in your lumbar without adding to that natural curve. Just try to be stable there. Let's do 2 more. Squeeze together and broaden it out. Final one. And then take a little rest. That could be a kneeling pose, child's pose, or a downward facing dog. Find a connection back to that smooth and subtle breath. Using that breath to calm your mind, create some space between your thoughts. You might even create a little space between your breaths. Slight pause after your exhale. And as we begin to mobilize our hips, you could use your ball if you wanted to add a little extra support from your hamstrings. The ball would go behind your knee. And we're going to start with the left leg. So bring your ball, if you're using it, behind your left knee and give it a nice squeeze. And then we're going to come down onto the forearms for this one. Knees can stay under the hips, squeezing on that tennis ball. Let's do just a moment or 2 of cat-cow so you can feel those 2 extremes. Let your tailbone lift as you let your belly fall. Pull your sternum forward like cow. Now arch your back, really dome. Tuck your belly in, round your upper back, tuck your chin, look between your knees, drop your tailbone down. Now let's find the middle ground in between those 2 extreme spine positions and find what feels like about neutral for you. If you have a pretty deep curve in your low back like I do, you don't have to take that away. Just try not to exaggerate it. Now squeeze on that ball if you've got it. Otherwise, I want you to think of kicking your heel in towards your right bum. Send your right leg backwards without coming into a back bend. So this is just hip extension. We're going to need our glutes here. Angle your knee out to the side for external rotation, and then pull your knee in towards your left arm bone. And then send it back behind you. We're going to rotate the hip, really controlled like this, make it strong. Can you find some support from around the core, from the right hip, even pressing down into your right leg? Keep moving. Broaden your upper back without doing the cats. Now let's reverse the direction of the circle. So first, pull your thigh towards your chest. Try not to add to that spine flexion. Stay neutral. Sweep your leg open like a gate, abduction, and then internally rotate your leg. So you're going to kind of pull your knee towards you as your toe goes outward, and then sweep your leg back into hip extension. Let's try that again. Pull it in, open it wide, internal rotation as you reach back. One more cycle like that. Make this really muscular and focused in your left hip. And then take a little rest. Your shoulders might need a break here. Maybe the front chest is a little tired. You can have a child's pose, or just sit back and kneel on your heels. Notice what you notice. Connect to breathing rhythm. Can you hear a sound with your breath? Let's move on to the second side. If you're using the ball, give it a squeeze behind your right knee. Come onto your forearms, find your neutral spine. So maybe you come through cat and cow a couple times just to see what that feels like, and then find your neutral. Squeeze your right heel in towards your bum. Try to keep that connection. Keep closing the space behind your knee. Now kick your right leg backwards. Don't change anything else in your body. Angle your knee outward as you externally rotate your hip, and then pull your leg in towards your trunk into hip flexion. Stabilize the rest of your body as you mobilize your right hip in this rotational path. Find your own pace. Keep it as slow and as strong as you can. There's no rush here. If you feel that your whole pelvis is opening, make the circle smaller. And if you sense that your weight is being shifted and you're opening up towards the right, reduce the range until you can just move the hip. Let's reverse the direction. Tuck in first. Move it outward. Internal rotation as you go back and up. 3 more like that. If you add in some resistance here, like you're moving underwater or against some resistance, you're going to work up just a little bit of a sweat. I'm shaking a little bit. Last one. And then you can have a little rest. Once again, what feels right. For our final mobility exercise, we're going to work on some spine articulation from a bridge pose. So come onto your back and don't worry about how close your heels get to your tush today. So we're going to keep the heels actually more away from our pelvis as we come into that bridge preparation position. So I know some of you that do yoga, you like to touch your fingertips towards your heels here. For today, let's be a little bit more conservative with our stance so that we can really isolate the articulation versus prioritizing a bigger back bend. We're going to start with the pelvis. So take your arms out to a T. Keep your hips grounded and let your pelvis rock back and forth between a forward tilt and a posterior tilt. With the forward tilt, you're going to lift your low back off the ground, but rock your tailbone towards the ground. And then with a posterior tuck, press your low back down, curl your tailbone as if you were going to take it between your thighs. You might feel a little core activation when you do that posterior tuck. And then an anterior tilt. Pour your pelvis forward towards your thigh bones, your low back curls. And posterior tuck of the pelvis. Imprint your low back a little closer to the ground. Stay here with that posterior tuck. Bring your arms beside your hips. Make sure your neck feels comfortable and relaxed. Press down strongly through your feet. And see if you can curl the tailbone up a little higher as you keep your low back and sacrum down on your mat. Keep your low back grounded and try to lift up through your sacrum. So just that very low piece of your spine. One vertebra at a time. Peel your low back off the floor, but keep your ribs grounded. Drive down through your heels. Back ribs heavy, front ribs relaxed and heavy. Now we're going to count down from 5 to 1. And on 1, you're going to be at just a moderate bridge pose. Try to go slow, 1 segment at a time. 5, 4, 3, 2. Maintain your bridge, but soften your neck and shoulders. Put the work in your legs, your inner thighs, and your glutes. Think about opening up the front of your hip crease here. Oh, there goes my light. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Sorry about that, everybody. My blind dog just walked right into the cord on the light that I have. How about 2 more breaths here? Can you feel the work in your hamstrings as you press your heels down and think about dragging them backwards? Now slowly lower your spine from the top, 1 segment at a time. 5, 4. Lower back starting to curl down. 3, 2. Keep your tailbone up for as long as you can, and then lay your spine all the way down. Take a little rest. Maybe you would like some windshield wipers here, so you can take your feet a little wider if that feels good. Let your thigh bones spiral inside your hips. One's going out as the other's turning in. And then you can bring your thighs towards your chest. Lift your head and shoulders. Flex your spine so that you can roll like a ball to come up to your seat. And then find a comfortable seat. Adjust until you feel satisfied. And I want to respect your time. We're coming up on almost 30 minutes here, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. But let me know what you thought of this. If there's something that I can do better, please let me know. And if you have any suggestions for any of your village yoga or fitness instructors, we are listening. So let us know what you would like. I hope you have a beautiful Sunday.